Hello. So I wanted to share with you some interesting information that I've noticed. I've been comparing quite a lot of flood charts, cyclone charts, from all the way going back to 1974, where we had Tropical Cyclone Tracey, and we had Cyclone Wanda, which was affecting Queensland itself. Now, I've also looked at the Northern Rivers floods, and I've just seen a lot of common threads in terms of the planets and their placements and their relationships to one another. So, if you're a bit of an astrology nerd or you're curious about this, feel free to tune in. I would like to just say as well, this is just for general information. This is for curiosity. This is to sort of show you some common threads for those who are astro curious. If you are feeling sensitive or triggered about this information, then please don't watch this for now. Just, if you're in the Northern Rivers or in Queensland and this is not helpful to you, please don't watch this. Watch this later for information purposes. When things pass. Okay. But I just want to share with you these charts now because I found some very interesting common threads. Okay, so I've drawn up this cyclone chart, and this is based on the 7th of March. So that's Friday, 5 p.m. in Brisbane. Okay, so this chart has got some interesting themes. So, like the moon is in a sanguine, which is a hot and wet sign, Gemini. Okay, Gemini is an air sign. So it is fitting for cyclone. Okay, it is a very mutable sign. So it describes change and flux, which we have seen in terms of the news reports. Like it's very unclear how this is going to play out. Now, the moon has made its square to Saturn at 5 p.m. tonight. So it would have already made it around 12:30, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And it is now moving toward the square of the nodal axis. Now, the south node and the north node are called the nodal axis. They are not planets, they are points. And when the moon makes that square to the nodal axis, I've seen some interesting themes in charts where this can be an intensification of energies. It can be challenging. These nodes are connected to fate and destiny, but also to a need to let go and surrender. It's they can bring problematic events, but they can also be about really letting go your power and control. Because in things like natural disasters, a lot of this is outside of our own control. And despite chaos, when I was caught up in a flood myself a couple of years ago, which was really severe, I did learn a lot and I did have to let go of control because what was happening was outside of me. So I just had to use my wisdom and my inner guidance to really let that unfold, the best it could. So yeah, I did see, so this moon's going to make a square to the nodes. And now, as I read in a previous video, which I will share again, Ptolemy, who was an astrologer all the way back in the 7th century, has said, if maleficent planets are joined with the luminaries. Now, in this chart, we see Saturn joined with the sun, which is a luminary, and we also see the moon in a square aspect to Saturn. So this is one of those times where he warns of serious dangers such as falls from heights, collapses of houses. If Saturn prevails, there could be collapse of buildings or shipwrecks. So, this is painting the picture of a big warning here. And Ptolemy is reminding us that this could be, a period where we've got to be very careful and be prepared. So, we've also got some other interesting things here that I've noticed. We've got Neptune right here on the south, on the north node. So it's on that nodal axis. Neptune is a planet which is connected to immense water, and it is connected to things sort of dissolving, like it can be connected to the sea. It can be connected to flooding. The thing is, Neptune is at 29 degrees of Pisces. It's about to change signs and move into Aries. It's been moving through Pisces. I'm just going to stop sharing this so I can actually talk to you. It's been moving through Pisces for the last 14 years, and it's about to move into Aries. So it's traversing that final degree of Pisces. Now, Neptune, when it's at 29 degrees, is on a fixed star called Shiat, or probably not saying it right. This is a fixed star that's connected to flooding. So this is unfortunately fitting because Neptune is not just on that fixed star, but it is very close to the nodal axis, which we know when I see planets connected to that nodal axis, and this is a theme I've seen through all the different cyclone charts and flood charts that I've looked at, I'm seeing so-called malefic planets like Neptune, Mars, Saturn, um, on that nodal axis, either by conjunction or in a square aspect. So let me just share my screen again. So we can see Neptune is conjunct the nodal axis here. It's conjunct the north node. Now the north node tends to increase whenever it touches it. So this could definitely speak to high water levels or flooding. The north node is about more of something. It also talks about our connection to possessions and sort of wanting or desiring more. So, there is a real challenge, I guess, with things like this, where we could be losing things that we value, possessions and cars and such and such. So that could be heightened at this period of time. The other thing that's really interesting and worth mentioning is that we see Mars, which is in Cancer. It's a water sign. Mars in Cancer is traditionally not a very good place for Mars because Mars is a malefic planet and it's in its sign of fall. Now, this can mean that it brings about some nasty problems. Now, this could describe wild weather. It could describe um, dangerous floods as well. Now, we see Mars is in a trine to Saturn. Now, trines, I'm going to stop sharing this and speak to you again. Trines, while, some modern astrology says trines are good, squares are bad. But what I've noticed from working with medical astrology is that actually seeing trines in a chart can indicate stagnation. Now, we've got Mars in a trine to Saturn. Now, they're both in water signs because trines are always formed between planets in the same element. Now, that could describe that we've got stagnation in our water system, in our channels, in our rivers, in our drains at home. So it's really worthwhile doing your best to clear out the drains and just to be mindful that water levels could rise due to immense amounts of water causing stagnation in those waterways. Now, I want to share with you another chart, which is just going to go back to here. I want to share with you a chart for Cyclone Tracey. Okay, now this chart, I'm just going to bring it up. Now, Cyclone Tracey happened in 1974 and it affected Darwin. It was at the end of 1974. And there was actually another cyclone, which was Cyclone Wanda, which happened in early 1974 and affected Queensland. So this chart is very interesting. We're seeing some similar themes to what we saw in the chart of the Cyclone Alfred. Doesn't make sense. Now, let me just share my screen with you. Okay, so this is Cyclone Tracey. Now, the first thing that jumps out to me is, okay, we've got our nodal axis, we've got increase, okay, we've got the north node, we've got potential maleficence here. This is our nodal axis. The north node is in Sagittarius. We've got both Neptune and Mars conjunct that north node. And that is something I've seen through all of these types of charts. Now, Mars Neptune is very erratic. It is very difficult to pinpoint. It is very, it is very kind of malevolent energy. And we did see, this this is a very, very serious cyclone. So that's one thing I noticed. Now, the other thing that's super interesting and actually quite strange is that we've got Jupiter here in Pisces. Okay, Jupiter's in Pisces at 12 degrees. Now, what's strange is that during the floods in the northern rivers, we actually had Jupiter in Pisces at 13 degrees, very much on the same degree or virtually. So I'm going to see if I can share. I want to share with you the chart of Cyclone Tracey and then show you the chart of the northern rivers together. I'm just going to have to pull them up side by side. Okay, so I'm just about to show you that. Okay, so here we go. All right, so on the left-hand side, we have the chart of Cyclone Tracey. Now, remember, these charts are going to vary. The movement of the moon is at approximately 12 degrees a day, but Cyclone Tracey lasted for a few days. These are not just a one hit like wonder in terms of like, not in that one period, like where we can say it started here. This chart is for the time when it actually hit Darwin, but it was in the vicinity for a couple of days beforehand, at least. Maybe I think it was 3 or 4 days. So the movement of the moon could very well have been, all the way back here, making a conjunction to Jupiter and then building up from there. So what I see is very interesting here. Look at this. This is Jupiter. It's in Pisces at 13 degrees of Pisces. This is the Northern Rivers chart for the Northern Rivers floods. Now, I've cast this for 12 p.m. This is actually when my house was filling up with water. And look at this. We're seeing the same placement. Now, it takes 12 years for the moon, for Jupiter to do one complete cycle. So it's just strange that it's on that same degree. The other thing which is really interesting is that we can see the nodal axis here. We can see that the nodal axis is in the first and seventh houses, which is indicative of this being a now problem. We can see Saturn is up on the MC of the chart, high in the chart, dominating the chart. Now, Saturn we know is connected to flooding and it's connected to water, especially when it's in Aquarius, which is the sign of the water bearer. This is the Northern Rivers flood chart here. Now, the North Node is actually on a fixed star called Algol, which is a very unlucky fixed star. And that was connected to the Medusa's head. Now, that is sort of a fixed star which talks about, or the risk of losing our head in terms of losing our sense of equilibrium and our sense of being able to think through things and be practical. It is a very unlucky fixed star. So seeing that is not a good sign. The other thing that I noticed is that we still have Neptune in a pretty close sextile and trine to this nodal axis. Generally, I would focus mainly on squares with the nodal axis, but it is interesting that Neptune is featuring again here. As we can see, it's featuring in a conjunction with the North Node in the Cyclone Tracey chart. So I wanted to just check through this. So in Cyclone Tracey, we've actually got Mars in a square to Jupiter. Okay, now this is not a good configuration because actually Jupiter intensifies and creates things that are big. Jupiter is in Pisces, which is a water sign, big water, which we see is possible here. Now, Jupiter is square Mars, which we know is erratic, which is connected to, catastrophes or disasters. And it's also with Neptune, making it very unpredictable and destructive. Now, when we look here, we're not seeing Mars in a square, but what we are seeing is Mars is in a sextile to Neptune again. So that is quite interesting. Now, the other thing that I noticed in all of these charts, virtually, which is super strange, is that we've actually got Chiron. I'll see if I can't pop Chiron up here for some reason. I don't know why. Where is Chiron? But the thing I've noticed, I might actually have to just show you one by one. Chiron is in Aries in virtually all of these charts. So I'm going to share with you Cyclone Tracey. And see this is Chiron, which is a planet which is connected to wounding, with a lesson that's supposed to be bringing out or encouraging our self assertion, our courage, our confidence. So as much as these natural disasters are terrible, they definitely bring out, our courage and our ability to kind of be, I guess, self-leaders. But look, 19 degrees of Aries, Cyclone Tracey. Now, Chiron has got a 50-year cycle, which is super strange. So now we're in Cyclone Alfred, and here's Chiron at 20 degrees Aries. 19 degrees Aries, 20 degrees Aries. And it is just super strange. Like these floods are effectively 50 years apart. And so we're seeing Chiron back in Aries. Aries is a sign of Mars. And Mars, which rules it, is in this wild sign of Cancer. Okay, it's erratic, it's emotional. Very strange. What about Cyclone Wanda, which happened in 1974? This one happened in early 1974. Well, Chiron is in Aries again. There's something in this. Now, what about the northern rivers? Floods of the northern rivers. Let's have a look at that. Chiron's in Aries again. It's just too strange. So I think that's really, really strange. I want to stop sharing and just check my notes. So some other things that I've seen are connections of important players to the nodal axis. So let me share with you the chart. Really interesting pattern here. We see the south node, which we know is connected to loss and I guess surrender and need to let go. But we see this as being a malevolent position in the chart generally, traditionally. And we see Saturn on that point. Now remember what Ptolemy said. He said if Saturn is conjunct or with that nodal axis, then this can bring danger of flooding, shipwreck, etc. So we're seeing that theme again. And the other thing that's very interesting is we're seeing the planet Uranus, which brings erratic energy in a trine to Saturn, very descriptive of a cyclone. And we're also seeing, who's this? This is Jupiter. Okay, Jupiter is in a trine to this configuration, but it's also in a square to Mars. Jupiter and Mars are featuring again here. So we're seeing an intensification. We're seeing something building and growing. And then we're seeing this configuration with Mars. So I know that this is about 7 degrees apart, but that is still significant, as we've unfortunately seen in this natural disaster. Now, the movement of the moon during Cyclone Wanda, and I've just cast this for the middle of the day, but the movement of the moon here, it is moving to the square of Mars, which is, yeah, categorically quite a chaotic time of disruption. And so I just want to check my notes. I'm going to stop sharing so you get a break from all the charts and you get to see me referring to my bit of paper. So another thing that I thought was very interesting, and it's not as close as I'd usually like to see it, but we have in astrology something called fixed stars, okay? Now, the planets, when they move through the zodiac, they actually can come into contact with these fixed stars. Now, we spoke about one before called Algol, which was connected to the Medusa's head and quite an unlucky fixed star. There is another fixed star which is coming up, and I want to share the chart with you. Now, this one was prevalent with Cyclone Alfred, and you can see here. So we have a fixed star called Baton Katos. Now, this one is not far away from here at all, okay? It's around the 21, 22 degree of Aries mark. And this is a fixed star which is connected to what they call the belly of the sea monster, which sounds eerie, but somewhat appropriate. So Ptolemy says that this particular fixed star is connected to or of the nature of Saturn. It is connected to compulsory transportation, change or immigration, misfortune by fire or accident, and shipwreck, but also rescue, falls and blows. So what's interesting is we've seen this theme of Chiron in Aries, and particularly here we can see it's conjunct that fixed star, which I just find very strange. So I wanted to draw your attention to that. These sort of warnings connected to excess water. We're also seeing the fixed star Shiat, which we understand is connected to immense water and flooding. And so, yeah, I'm just wanting you to all be mindful of these configurations and make preparations accordingly. Which I think it is quite interesting is the moon in air signs. Okay, the moon is in an air sign in this in Cyclone Alfred. We're seeing that, and air being descriptive of disruptions through something like a cyclone. It's quite fitting. Cyclone Wanda, however, the moon is back in an air sign and it's in a big stellium. Okay, a stellium is like a large amount. So we've got over 3 planets. Here we've got 5 planets all in Aquarius. Now, when we see a stellium like this can describe an uneven energy. A configuration where we've got a lot of planets all in one sign can bring an imbalanced energy. Now, there's so much air in this chart. Look at it. We've got 5 planets in air up here. We've got Pluto sending a trine to that whole region. We've also got Saturn and the South Node also in air. So there's very little stability here. The only planet in Earth is actually Mars, which is in its detriment in Taurus, which I wouldn't say provides much stability at all. Now, when we go to Cyclone Tracey, we see, okay, we've got the moon in an earth sign, and we don't see anywhere near as much air here at all. But what we do see is we see a big fat stellium. So we see another series of planets all together in one part of the chart. Now, this can describe that we have some stagnation in a particular part. So sometimes stagnation brings an unevenness to the energy. So when we look at Cyclone Wanda, we've seen that we've got that big stellium. Cyclone Alfred, okay, we have another big stellium. So there's a lot of these configurations all bunched up together. Now there's a huge amount of water here. We've got a stellium of planets in Pisces, intensified by I guess the nature of the North Node, which kind of increases whatever touches it. And then we also see an airy moon. Now, the chart for the Northern Rivers floods is quite interesting. And we see another superstellium there. As we can see, all of this. And often they're high up in the chart. Now, the top of the chart talks about the sky portion, okay, talks about what is coming from above. And we see there's a lot of water up there coming from above. So that's quite interesting. Now, also, this is a superstellium in Pisces and Aquarius. Now, Aquarius is the water bearer. It might be an air sign, but it's also got connections to water. So that is, again, really interesting. All right, so I know this is a lot of information. Hopefully, some of this is interesting. I was really surprised to see so many correlations between all these charts, especially the placement of the Chiron in Aries across the board. I found that very strange, given that Chiron does change zodiacal signs approximately every 4 years. So to see it in the same freaking sign, very not that far away in degree either, is strange. So I think that what this is potentially indicating is that, you know, these types of disasters, these types of events really do encourage us to confront our core wounding. You know, they really encourage us or make us come to terms with who we are and step into our power. That's what Aries is about, okay? Really becoming courageous, being bold, taking action. So if there is something that we can learn from such things, you know, hopefully it is, how do we step into our power? How can we be good leaders? How can we take action that is, you know, the most suitable, most helpful for not just ourselves, but for everybody? So I'm going to leave it at that. There's so much more, but I don't want to overcook it and bore those of you who are not into astrology enough to kind of get it. So yeah, I wish you all well. If this is if you're watching this in the build up to the cyclone or you're up north, I wish you the very best. And I'll be back again soon.